folks, the Closest here. Long time no see. I kind of fallen out of love with YouTube a little bit. Just got a bit bored with it. I kept making the same old videos, showing another knife that was a small iteration on another knife, and I thought, well, if I'm bored with it, I can't imagine how dull you must all find it. However, I went up to Edgy Expo yesterday, up at Perth Racecourse, and I met quite a lot of knife makers, a lot of whom are local to here. Most of them making fixed blades, which is probably why I've not really sought them out, because I tend to be a folding knife kind of guy, but not all. And I met some really nice people, and some of them live really close. There's a guy in Lone Head who's 20 miles from here. And others are not that far away. Apparently the Scottish Knife Makers Association, who were represented there, have about 70 members in Scotland. Not all professional knife makers, and not all the knife makers I met yesterday are fully professional, i.e. they're not making their living at it. Doesn't mean their work is any less professional. But anyway, I wanted to just run through some of the exhibitors there and just give you an idea of what happened. I mean, there are one or two. There's Heine Haynes was there. Their desk was kind of 5 deep for the entire day. Couldn't really get close to it. I did have a quick look. The only thing that struck me as particularly interesting was they had a case of sort of collectible knives and custom knives and a couple of Almars and things in there that was just sort of interesting. Although nobody else seemed to be looking at it. They all seemed to be clawing through the piles of CRKT show specials at 15 quid and so forth. I did get a chance to have a look at some Rosecraft knives though, but I'm unmoved by them. I really am. I think they're overpriced for what they are. Don't get it. But anyway, Congi's Knife Sales was there. I'm a big fan of Congi. Again, he was very, very busy, but I did get the chance to at least say hello to him. I picked up a couple of little pieces from him, though perhaps not what one might expect. I picked up a watch, a Steinhardt watch, a copy of a Rolex. An automatic watch, though, proper mechanism in it. And I also picked up a little Japanese Spyderco. I collect Japanese Spydercos, and I did a little trade with him for that. So that was quite nice. The only other, or the other sort of big net, well, they're big now, I think, is Arthur Wright and Sons. They did a special of the Senator, which is my favourite of their knives. It's got this lovely chasing on the back that Michael Harrison does. With a dyed green wood. I didn't buy it for a number of reasons. One, because I have about 5 or 6 Senators already, and my limited budget these days, I wouldn't have spent my money on another one. So, you know. The interesting thing, though, I was hoping to meet the Harrisons, but I don't believe they were there, and I certainly didn't meet them. I did meet Slipjoint Sawyer, which is good because obviously I've been watching his YouTube channel. He has the enthusiasm that I lack for putting out more and more slip joints. Well, I mean, I've not given up on liking slip joints. I love British slip joints. I still collect them. I look at my collection every day, pretty much. I've got a big cabinet of them in my room. So, if I move on to some of the, I'm going to say more interesting. They're interesting in that they're new to me, and new to me brought me a degree of excitement which I was kind of pleased with. The first one, I don't know which way up the logo goes. I take it it's that way. Yeah. There we are, is their card. Forth Valley Forge, a guy called Peter Nelson. I just thought it was interesting to meet these people because they're not that far away from me. I live in the Clyde Valley, but the Clyde Valley and the Forth Valley are the two rivers that divide Scotland, the sort of the lowlands, from the central band through the Highlands. So the Edinburgh's on the Forth, Glasgow's on the Clyde. Where I live, we're sort of halfway between the two, but the Clyde heads from Glasgow sort of south across Scotland, whereas Forth goes across and then up north. Anyway, so Forth Valley Forge, not desperately far from me. The one that I'm showing, the pictures I'm showing here, first one is cherry red Damascus steel, so that he makes his own Damascus from scratch, and this is a picture of the sort of first stage of the billets being welded together before they're crushed and then hammered and then folded and hammered and folded and so forth. I think he does just a 32 layer Damascus. I think if it gets further than that it becomes a bit difficult. This second picture is one of his Damascus blades, and then finally a full-length Japanese style Damascus knife, which I mean, these are really, really nice pieces and remarkably inexpensive. I mean, maybe a quarter of the price that you would pay from a Japanese smith. I can't speak as to the quality and so forth, but they are lovely pieces for really quite attractive prices. So that was the first one. Then I'll move on up to Skye. Now, I don't know if many of you know about Scottish geography, but Skye is quite a large island, really, off the west coast of Scotland. And these people, the Foxes Hollows, Hannah and Marty, really nice couple. They were dressed in traditional kilts, which was quite nice. But anyway, they hand forge knives. One of their other big things that they do is that they do lessons. So you can go up to them and have a day's duel on how to make a knife. And when you're finished, you come away with your own unique handmade knife, which I think is good. I have no idea what it costs. They did have a price list, but I was too busy chatting, and they do make very nice ski and do's and things. If there's one of the companies that you can sort of commission if you're getting married, if you're Scottish and you want a handmade ski and do. I had some made for my daughter's wedding a little while ago, and ended up getting Ashley Harrison to make them because I knew he'd make a good job of them, and I didn't know really any Scottish makers. But as it turns out, I had several I could have chosen from. Now, the next one. This is Ridgeback Forge. Is again not very far from me. This is a guy down in Dumfries. Again, he does lessons in how to make your own knife, 1 and 2 day knife making experiences. Hopefully you can see his social media and so forth things. There's quite a good website. Again, he makes some lovely knives. The one on his leaflet isn't perhaps his most attractive. I'm not quite keen on that sort of packerwood, but a lot of the stuff that he had on display at the show was really quite spectacular. And this one here off his website is beautiful, not just Damascus, but a sandmade Damascus, and it's hand forged again. He makes his own Damascus, which is a thing of real beauty. Next one, again, not far from me. In fact, this one's probably the closest to me. This is Gemini Bespoke Knives Limited. They're in a place called Lonehead, which is less than 20 miles from where I am sitting at the moment. Again, he makes beautiful stuff. In terms of, he makes these lovely, well, I'll insert a picture over the top, but this ski and do, and then he makes these broken sword ski and do's, which I think are a bit more out there. But this knife that I'm showing you on the insert here is a really beautiful ski and do with copper inlaid in the Damascus. And then there's this lovely Japanese style chef's knife. There seems to be a lot of people copying Japanese style chef's knives at the moment, and I didn't see a bad one. I only saw really good ones. So that was a good sign about the health of the Scottish knife industry. Then we have, now this guy I thought was very interesting. Again, he has a website. This is Ian Carlton of Dogtown Forge. He has a website there, dogtownforge.co.uk, and again, his knives are incredibly well priced. I mean, Gemini Forge, those, I think those ski and do's with the inlaid copper come in around sort of the £500 mark, which is great value for what they are, but it's still a lot of money. Whereas Ian Carlton has, just for example, there's a bird and trout knife on his website. It's actually the only knife that's on his website is for sale, but I suspect if you contact him, he'll have a few more, because he had a lot of stuff at the show, and I don't know how much of it he'll have sold. But you can buy a bird and trout knife complete with its sheath and so forth, £85. And incidentally, if anybody does buy it, just mention that you saw him here, because I get nothing out of it, but it'd be quite nice for him to know that chatting to me wasn't a complete waste of his time yesterday. He is actually an amateur knife maker. It's his hobby, but he's not in any way unprofessional. It isn't his main gig. It isn't what he makes his living at. As a result, he tends to sell his knives for effectively at cost, because what he's wanting to do is to be able to continue with his hobby without it bankrupting him, and I think that's reasonable. Moving on. Now, many of those names may be new to you, partly because they've not been around for very long, and they don't have any sort of marketing budgets or anything, so it's purely word of mouth. So they may or may not develop, I don't know. But this one will be familiar to many of you, and indeed I have actually reviewed one of their knives in the past, Leading Edge Knife Works, which is Evan and Jill. And I was speaking to Jill and saying, you know, those knives look lovely. I said to her I'd reviewed one of their knives before, and she tapped Evan on the shoulder, and he said, what's your YouTube? I told him, and he said, oh yes, I remember. And he remembered what the knife was that I'd reviewed, and I thought obviously it must have made an impact. And he said, but no, he'd only ever had about 5 or 6 YouTube reviews of his knives, so he remembered. And one thing I noticed was, I can't remember how many years ago that was, I should have looked it up, but it was quite a while ago, and comparing what I looked at then with what I looked at yesterday, there was nothing wrong with the knife that I reviewed before, but the knives today looked so much more professional. Finish was better. He's obviously learnt some learnt more of his trade and improved. And I think that's always a good thing. It's a brilliant sign to see that somebody isn't just resting on their laurels and saying, oh yeah, I can produce a knife. He's still producing that original pattern that I reviewed. But he's also got other patterns. The one I'm showing you here is a lamb's foot, which I rather like. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a picture of his YouTube or his off his Facebook of one of the knives that I actually handled yesterday, because I think they were really, really nice, and he had several of them. Again, if I had money in my pocket yesterday, I could well have bought one of those. But anyway, he has promised to send me one to review. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm hoping we'll get that on here sooner rather than later. If nothing else, it's different to all the other knives that I've reviewed of late. It's not a slip joint, they're friction folders. They're beautifully handmade. They're not made in England, they're not even made in Scotland, they're made in Northern Ireland, which is interesting. But anyway, very nice people, and very nice knives. So we can look forward to that, I hope. Now, before I come to the last one, I just want to mention these ones quickly. Now, these weren't really my thing. Sean Shropshire, who's not from Shropshire. He's actually from Oklahoma, which is a long way from home. But they came over to exhibit in this show, and they were showing some really nice stuff. I mean, there's some good chef's knives and outdoor knives, but the one that they had sort of in the middle of their display was one rather like this one here with the sheath, which was absolutely super impressive. Loads of work into it. Not perhaps really my style, but it was still very beautiful to see, and I enjoyed talking to them. And I would say I was particularly pleased they'd come so far. When I used to be in the Buell Motorcycle Enthusiast group, we used to have the Sprout Fest Awards at our Christmas dinner, and we always used to have a thing called the Iron Butt Award for somebody who'd come the furthest. So they would win the Iron Butt Award. You'll see a picture of this come up. I'll insert it here. I don't have a card or anything because I was silly and forgot to pick one up. But this is Andy Brock, A. Brock Knives, and they are. I spoke to Andy. He makes really high quality slip joints. He was actually the first person I spoke to, so I hadn't quite got into gear and thinking about what I should be doing. So I've just done a screenshot from a video that he did of yesterday's table that he had at the show. And this particular knife is the one that I've highlighted because if I had been buying a knife yesterday, this is the one that I would have bought from all the knives in the show. I think it was about £150, which I suppose for a slip joint lamb's foot is probably fairly expensive, but for one built to this sort of quality, no, it was. I would have said it was good value for money. I didn't have any money, so I didn't buy it. And the last one is White Peak Knives. It's a guy called Rob. He started out making knives in Derbyshire, but relocated to Ayrshire. So there's another one that's probably less than 50 miles from my front door. I've saved him till last for a reason, and that is because much as I told myself I wasn't going to buy any knives yesterday because I didn't have any money, I ended up buying one anyway, and I bought this. Now, this is really, if I'm going to have this as a desk knife, so you can get it with a full-on sheath like a sort of bushcraft style, little baby bushcraft style sheath, or you can get it, you can have just a mask like this, and because it's a desk knife, I've just had the mask. It makes more sense for what I want to do with it. It's made of Wolfram Special steel, so that's got about 2% of tungsten Wolfram in it to make it better at retaining an edge, harder wearing. What I particularly liked about it, though, is the fact that it has a short blade but a long handle. So it's a small knife overall, but it has a decent sized handle and a non-threatening sized blade, which makes it a perfect little desk knife for me. I've got extra large hands, I wear extra large gloves, but I can still get pretty much a full hand grip on there. The handle is made of a burr wood. Now, he did tell me what the wood was. Went in one ear and out the other. I spoke to so many people yesterday. I can barely remember who I spoke to, let alone what they told me. It's a blue, well, it's stabilised and it has a blue stain in it as well, with 2 brass pins and a lanyard tube. Now, this is a sort of mosaic pin motif. Now, whether it's just a motif set in both sides or whether it's a pin all the way through, I'm really not sure. I assumed it was just 2 motifs stuck in, and then I realised that on both sides the rabbit is facing the point, so it could be that it goes all the way through. Be a little, in a way, a little pointless, but it might be easier to do so. Who knows? It is obviously the logo for White Peak Knives. It's a full tang. I would guess that's about 2 millimeters, maybe slightly more, but probably 2 millimeter stock at a guess. And as I say, it fills the hand. Now, one thing I noticed, I looked on his website, and again, he's not alone in this, but it's got quite a few knives available. I think partly because he had so many available for the show, so they're all on his website. But all but, I think, 4 or 5 knives and 3 different models are under £100. So although I paid $65 for this, for another tenner I could have got a sort of 3 or 4 inch bladed knife in a very similar construction. This is the one I wanted, that's why I bought this one, but most of them, I say, are under £100. So worth a look. If you do buy anything from him, like with all of these others, I'd be grateful if you would mention that you saw him here. Or you may have seen him yourself at the show, but if you did see it here, mention that you've spoken to me. I'm quite keen to talk to some of these people. I'd like to do some videos, perhaps at some of the forges, so we can actually see how some of these knives are made. I think that might be more interesting than just desktop reviews. Anyway, I will leave it at that. I'm looking forward to next year's show. There's no doubt about that. And I'm looking forward to doing a few spin-offs from this. And I really do need to get my act together and do some of the other stuff that's been kicking around for a while, but has so far evaded my camera. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. We're past the 3,000 subscribers, so I don't have to keep begging for that. But if you do want to subscribe, please do. If you want to comment, I've got a little better at replying to comments. Hopefully I'm more or less up to date, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.